Hello, it's Josh Bloom, and it's Friday. Hooray! I am not at the P today. I am at the BC, which is the Black Cow in Croton, New York, a black-owned, gay-friendly, queer and trans employing and supporting coffee shop. I say this because it is worth pointing out, and that's it. That's the point. It is merely worth pointing out, and there is nothing more to it than that. Everybody deserves a safe space, and when I say that, I mean everybody. As I have said, I spend most of my coffee shop time at the P lately, which is a different kind of conservative environment, but no less welcoming based on my experiences, and that fact is also worth pointing out. I know that feeling safe isn't everybody's experience, but I wish for it to be. I owe you people 2 more movie reviews at this point. 3 if you count the Akira Kurosawa High and Low, which I didn't mean to write about, but I got drawn into as I started writing about Spike Lee's new film Highest to Lowest, which is based on the Kurosawa film. My research went deeper than expected. The third is, of course, the classic from my childhood, The Goonies, which was attended by me and my therapist, which we both knew would happen before, and we both knew happened after, but not during. It makes a great story that I have stretched out over 2 weeks now. I recently returned to this type of long-form culture coverage after completing my book, which is now officially scheduled to come out on December 9th. I will have more details when it is publicly announced later this month. Long-form culture coverage is what I am calling the film reviews I write that aren't really film reviews as much as they are watch-alongs / hyperbolic nervous breakdowns. I am enjoying cranking out many thousands of words immensely, but it takes time. I don't skimp on providing podcast editions of these compositions either, in addition to my Come With Me to See full-length videos of the entire experience, because I want you to feel like you are having a nervous breakdown with me. Please subscribe to my Substack at superjews.substack.com, and you will receive all of this incendiary content delivered directly to your inbox. For now, you can read, listen to, and watch all of the previously posted content of this type. Links can be found at superjews.com, that's superjews.com, or IamJoshBloom.com. We are about to enter the season of Oscar-worthy films being released, and now that I have 2 passes to the Jacob Burns Film Center, as well as another $20 Regal gift card that has been sitting in my bag for 7 months, I plan to put them all to use in an effort to make every thought I have this fall and winter available to the public. One film I can guarantee is on the docket is the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio called One Battle After Another. There is a strange campaign going on involving Steven Spielberg endlessly praising this film, which has no effect on me other than confirming that I will make fun of that effort in more detail soon. I will not be making fun of the escalation of political violence that we are experiencing this week. I will talk about it, however, as you will hear shortly. My message stays the same, and my message stays clear. While it is important to know what is happening around us, we are only granted so much time here as the deadly events of this week serve to remind us. By the way, speaking of only being granted so much time, while the come with me to see that I will be posting about highest to lowest will still contain my McMuffin acquiring strategies and tips, and I stand by referring to myself last week as a non-humanely raised pig, I have returned to a more restricted calorie agenda for now, which unfortunately McMuffins have fallen outside of for the moment. In fact, after a discussion with my friend at the P, who I found out has only voted once in his life and made me respect that decision, I now have a banana sitting next to me as I type. I like bananas. I have missed bananas. I am bananas. I mentioned my book momentarily moments ago, but I want to let you know that I have received the rest of my advance, which Wells Fargo will be happy about, and the book is now with a copy editor. I am a big boy author now. On Monday, I have a meeting with the publicist who will be announcing the book and reaching out for press coverage about the book, and I am very excited about that because this is a publicist who is very capable, and I am very lucky to be working with. I spent an entire day working on a questionnaire from my publisher that required me to write a bio about myself, a synopsis of the book, and other types of promotion copy. I want all of the writing, from the actual book down to photo captions and advertising materials, to reflect my voice. It is very challenging to stay in the headspace where I can hear my voice, however. I hope you are hearing it now. I told you last week that the main subject of the book freaked out when he read it, but the other main subject of the book has yet to say anything. I am not surprised. These people have been written about before, just not in as much detail as I have written about them. The second subject told me in the past that she didn't even read the previous book that talked about her, which surprised me at the time, but as I said, it doesn't now. So I am cool with it. I did my factual research the best I could to the point of lost sleep and lost sanity, and hopefully any major flaws in my timeline will be addressed before we go to press. Do you know what is sitting right next to my banana at the Black Cow Coffee Company community table? It is an empty coffee mug. Why is it empty? I drank the coffee and can't afford to refill it. There is no website called Buy Me a Banana because I had to spend my banana money on coffee because there is no sip club at the Black Cow Coffee Company. But there is a website called Buy Me a Coffee, and for only $3, you can buy me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Josh Bloom. Only $3 to celebrate with me at a website that does exactly as advertised, and isn't that wonderful? I can't hear your response, but I am sure it is in agreement. Thank you. This is episode number 48 of the Josh Bloom hopes that when his book is published, he will not find out that he got some major facts fucked up, not because of the fucked up facts themselves, but because of his obsessive-compulsive adjacent mentality that will be triggered forever knowing that this book exists with mistakes in it. But that is just the way it goes podcast. Also known as the Josh Bloom Podcast. It is the latest edition of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, days 229 through 235. This week on the show, day 229, I think for a second that the leader of the Trump administration may have watched my video from the previous day about self-awareness when he admits that the latest jobs report was bad, which doesn't sound like the leader of the Trump administration that I know. He quickly blames someone else, however, something about not raising interest rates, which, like Bob Odenkirk in the movie titled Nobody actually cares about. On day 230, I talk about apologies and the people who never stop apologizing, even when it isn't necessary, kind of like that Nirvana song, All Apologies. Then there's the leader of the Trump administration who never sees the need to apologize for anything, a sure sign of a person lacking empathy, shame, and morality, which he will prove once again as the week continues. You'll see. On day 231, I ask a fundamental life question. Do you believe in a creator? This came up after I heard a person say that if you just indulge in psychedelics, you will have your mind open to a consciousness that will make you believe in God. I contemplate all of the dirty hippies who saw Jerry Garcia when he was still alive and went away with this experience thinking they had achieved some kind of awareness that couldn't have been accomplished otherwise. Hey, I've done it, and I remain unconvinced. On day 232, I explore the idea that eternally optimistic people like myself and the leader of the Trump administration must have our optimism accompanied by realism and not delusion. I discuss how I embrace the former and the leader of the Trump administration, the latter. Surprise, surprise. I wonder aloud if he does his bizarre double-fisted jerk dance to Happy by Pharrell Williams when he is in one of his deluded states. I am sorry for whatever is playing in your mind at the moment. It is my fault. On day 233, the heat is being turned up on the leader of the Trump administration regarding the files that he seems to appear in many, many, many times. The previous day, I wondered if he loved the song Happy by Pharrell Williams, and now I am wondering if he also loves the unfortunate 1973 hit by Ringo Starr titled You're 16. I have a feeling that it is not only a favorite, it used to be the leader of the Trump administration's whole way of life. On day 234, there is no option but to address the horrific political violence that took place just hours before I recorded that day's video. My take on this lethal event is practical. If we begin to head down this road of violence, we will find ourselves headed towards a literal dead end. I have faith in the fact that human history shows we have been in this position before, but I rather not be a casualty of the beginnings of a civil war. Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi did not die for this behavior to just continue. On day 235, I look forward to being annoyed by Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce instead of the ever-growing divisiveness that threatens to derail our way of life. I know it sounds dramatic, but don't worry. Out in the community every day, everyone seems okay. I suggest we put aside our differences and come together to focus on the 1% who prefer us fighting so we don't notice how they take advantage of us for their own personal gain. Please make sure to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe right away. We are closing in on 2 million views. I will be posting my extended Come With Me to See videos there, and you can also check out my series like 10-second songs, Affirmations for the Miserable, Songs That Don't Respect My Boundaries, and Misunderstood Lyrics, along with the original daily TikTok videos of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration that this podcast is made from. Follow me on all my social media at superjews.com or IamJoshBloom.com, okay? Thanks for listening, and now let's get into 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. Just so you know, I am back home now and had a very nice chat with my friend Danny at the Black Cow, who showed up just as I was about to leave. He is having an exhibition of some of his photographs in October at a gallery in town. Danny is a wise, highly educated, and learned world traveler who is about 20 years older than me. The last time we chatted, he thought that his days of sharing his photography were behind him. I encouraged him to stop thinking that way, and now he is putting on an exhibition. I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of me. Enjoy the show. I'll be here patting myself on the back. Day 229 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. For a minute this morning, I thought the leader of the Trump administration saw my video from yesterday. Hi, Donald. How you doing, man? The reason I thought that is that during my drive over to the track to take a little walkie walk, I listened to the so-called news network CNN for approximately 90 seconds. And in that news, they said the new jobs report came out. This is the new jobs report given by the new economist that is replacing the old economist that the leader of the Trump administration fired because the previous month's job numbers were not to his liking. These job numbers were also not to his liking, so apparently the new economist is also a fake economist. The reason why I thought the leader of the Trump administration was watching my video yesterday about people who will never hold up a mirror to themselves to see who they really are is because the leader of the Trump administration admitted that those job numbers were bad, which was obviously quite surprising for him to do. Before the 90 seconds was up, however, I found out that he couldn't have been watching because then he went on to blame Jerome Powell, the Fed chair that the leader of the Trump administration, Donald Trump, appointed himself. He is very bad at appointing people, apparently. He blamed it on the fact that Jerome Powell has still not lowered interest rates. Well, Donald, if you are watching today, I have to let you know that no one gives a flying fuck about interest rates. Nobody. When I say nobody, I mean exactly 0 people. Nobody. Just like that Bob Odenkirk movie. The people out here care about going into the grocery store and seeing a head of lettuce, iceberg lettuce, the least nutritious lettuce, priced at $3. I remember when that lettuce was $1.25. Donald, your head is made of lettuce if you think that anyone gives a flying fuck about interest rates but you. One more thing. We are coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, and I am wondering just how the leader of the Trump administration is going to figure out how to blame it on Barack Obama. I wonder if he'll invite the Taliban to Camp David again. What a traitorous situation. Don't forget to ignore the Trump administration. Day 230 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. It is important to apologize when you have done somebody wrong. But there is such a thing as apologizing too much, especially if you are apologizing when you did nothing wrong. You do not have to give all apologies, as that Kurt Cobain song seems to suggest. In fact, the leader of the Trump administration actually takes the complete opposite approach. His song is called No Apologies, and unlike Nirvana's song, his song sounds like shit. Never apologizing for your mistakes is fundamentally weak. And when you combine someone who is fundamentally weak with someone who's also fundamentally delusional and lacking in self-awareness, you end up with a person who is free to hurt people and feel no shame, feel no empathy, feel no morality, and so on, to the point that the person in question, who may or may not be the leader of the Trump administration, will not only never apologize for anything, they will actually expect an apology from you. The kind of people who will apologize to someone who actually did them wrong is a traumatized person. And people who are traumatized in this way apologize constantly for behaviors that aren't worthy of apology, and sometimes for behaviors that didn't actually even happen. So, unlike the leader of the Trump administration, who is beyond any type of remedy other than being dealt with in the next plane of consciousness that he pretends to believe in, there is help for those who have been traumatized and live with trauma and exhibit this trauma in their behavior by constantly and consistently apologizing to others when there is no apology necessary. I recommend that these people continue to seek the help of a qualified psychotherapist who can advise them to confront the trauma that made them this person that feels like they must make amends for transgressions that never took place. Unfortunately, we will have to continue to suffer the president's disconnected insubordination, but we can manage that by ignoring the Trump administration. Day 231 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Do you believe in a creator? If you are religious and you believe in a God, then you believe in a creator. I listened to someone today try to explain to a person who does not believe in God and does not believe in a creator that they just weren't open to believing in God yet. This person tried to make the comparison to people who have a psychedelic experience like one might have at a Grateful Dead concert while Jerry Garcia was still alive, for lack of a better way to describe it, where their mind would be opened to a plane of consciousness that they did not experience before and therefore would then believe in God. This person and people who think that non-believers just haven't been exposed to a level of consciousness that would allow them to believe in God do not understand that a psychedelic experience might make you perceive reality in a different way once that experience has come to an end after 8 to 10 hours, but it does not change actual reality. People who believe that quote unquote seeing God means there is a God and then take that out of their own life experience and try to impose this new belief on others is the exact reason why we currently suffer under the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. People who hold a belief in faith over facts are why we suffer under leaders who use that faith to manipulate and control their followers. There is nothing wrong with having faith. There is nothing wrong with believing in God. There is nothing wrong with feeling as if there is a deeper level of consciousness that we can all attain. What there is something wrong with is deciding that you know what the quote unquote truth is and that you have the right to impose that truth on others. I believe that people would, could, and should carry out their lives in any way they wish, worshiping in any denomination. Personally, I do not believe in religion, but I do have faith in ignoring the Trump administration. Day 232 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I have something in common with the leader of the Trump administration. And no, it is not sending completely disgusting, obviously incriminating birthday cards to one of the most heinous predators in American history. It is the belief that anything is possible. I am an optimist, and as much as I believe that the leader of the Trump administration is a totally negative influence on our nation, I believe that he believes he is eternally optimistic. He probably loves the song Happy by Pharrell Williams and would probably do his double fisted jerk dance to it if his hands weren't so bruised at the moment. Quite often, optimism goes hand in hand with being delusional, but I believe that optimism must go hand in hand with being realistic. I believe that one must be realistic to achieve optimism, that one must be mindful to maintain optimism, and that one must be hopeful to embrace optimism eternally. The leader of the Trump administration only does the optimism part all by itself because his optimism is rooted in his delusion. For instance, when he was so roundly booed at the US Open over this past weekend, it is a certainty that he heard those boos as cheers because in his mind he believes that people would never boo because booing is pessimistic and he is eternally but delusionally optimistic. But if he were realistic, he would stop and say, "What is this booing about?" If he were mindful, he would say, "Well, perhaps these are people who disagree with my behavior both as a person and a president." If he were hopeful in his realistic and mindful optimism, he would say, "Perhaps I can change their minds through taking responsibility for my behavior and improving myself." Unfortunately, this example shows where the commonality I have with the leader of the Trump administration in our optimistic way of life diverges. I hope that his followers can make sense of this explanation, and I am optimistic that we will continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 233 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. In 1973, Ringo Starr of the Beatles released a solo single titled "You're 16." Now, I am not going to tell you any more about this song other than that title. But based on what the leader of the Trump administration seems to possibly, maybe, could be, have been involved in with the man he sent a 50th birthday card to, I would not be surprised if that particular song was one of his favorites that he did that ridiculous double-fisted jerk dance to. I am not sure if Ringo Starr has ever come out to say that maybe that song was not the best choice in the world. But we know for sure that the leader of the Trump administration has not come out to say that maybe that birthday card was not the best choice in the world. However, the number 16 in and of itself is not a bad thing. And in fact, today is a celebration of that number, the number 16, because today we are officially 16%. That's right, 16% through the final term of the leader of the Trump administration. And when we reach these milestones, I like to remind myself just what the hell I am doing here. The point of this series is to remind myself to pay less attention to the unending news cycle that will tell us about birthday cards that the leader of the Trump administration has been sending 24 hours a day if we're not careful. That is a depletion of our valuable time on this earth. So when we reclaim that time, we regain our mind and we are able to use those resources, that energy, that positive vibe to put good into the world and to help those around us who maybe aren't as clear-headed when it comes to avoiding this constant barrage of noise. I suggest avoiding songs like Ringo's unfortunate tune from 1973 and instead listening to some that are less of an aberration. enjoy the completion of Sweet 16% and continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 234 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. What can one say today as part of a series called 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, other than to acknowledge that a prominent figure in the orbit of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration is no longer with us? I am not sure if ordinary people who do not follow politics are even aware of who this person is, but they might know who Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi are, two of history's most prominent proponents of peace and love who were both the subjects of political assassinations. I do not condone extreme violence like this, whether the person is known or unknown, but my reasons for not condoning it might be different from others. My reasons for not condoning it are practical. Not only will an act like this not solve anything in and of itself, but I fully expect that the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration will use this event in any way they possibly can to continue to try and clamp down on our freedoms, be they through orders, legislation, or more likely, through intimidation, which is their most effective and favorite means of attempting to alter our way of life. Do I feel for the family of anyone who is the victim of violent crime? Of course I do. It is not the fault of children when their parents are despicable human beings. There are others speaking much more harshly than myself today about what kind of person this person was. And while I do not agree with celebrating the act, I do not discredit the people who speak about this person's hateful rhetoric prior to the act. I do not agree with celebrating someone who commits these crimes, and I do not agree with celebrating when hateful people become victims of these crimes, just like I don't like it when people with ideologies counter to mine, such as the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, seem to not care about violence that takes place and victims that are created who do not agree with them and their ideologies. However, my concern is less with the person who is no longer with us. My concern is with the people of the nation who now, more than ever, must ignore the Trump administration. Day 235 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Do you know what everyone on the left and the right have in common? No, it isn't being tired of Taylor and Travis, but it will be soon. For now, it is being abused, maligned, manipulated, and exploited by millionaires and billionaires who want us to be fighting with each other so that we forget to pay attention to the fact that they are squeezing every bit of life out of us into their pockets. Now would be as good a time as any for all of us who are not millionaires and billionaires to put aside our ideological differences, because with what happened yesterday, we are headed down a road that does not end well. In fact, this road is literally a dead end, and why would any of us want to go down that road? It's not a fun road unless you don't like living anymore, and I would like to do more living. I want to believe that before we get to that point, we can find a way, all of us, every one of us who is not rich and privileged, to accept that fundamental fact of life that we have in common, which is being a member of the 99% of have-nots versus the 1% of haves. We can help one another keep the rich and privileged who benefit from our labor and who benefit from separating us with their divisive rhetoric from continuing to co-opt our freedom for their gain. Do I think people who wake up every day angry, wondering who they're going to lash out at today are going to put aside that anger that makes them feel good for a minute before they get angry all over again in favor of actually embracing one another against those who wish to profit off our differences? Not really. But at least I have done my part by offering this interpretation and continuing to suggest that we ignore, the Trump administration. Why did the New York Yankees put up Charlie Kirk's picture and give him a moment of silence? It is not about politics. It's simply because he's an entertainment figure. And when you have a stadium full of people, a bunch of them are going to know who he is. I'm bringing this up because so many people are saying, why not the same for the politicians who received the same in Minnesota? Why not for the children of Gaza? If they did that, it would seem tacky, and it would seem to undermine the gravity of what happened to them. If you think about it in that context, it undermines the weight of the hate of Charlie Kirk. He is seen as a pop culture entertainment figure in this context, and nothing more. Frankly, outside of the political bubble, many people do not even know who he is. So you might say, well, great. Now people are going to find out who he is. The people who don't know who he is or are going to find out who he is, they're not going to be like, oh, wow, I finally found someone who speaks for me. They're going to be, this guy is a goddamn lunatic. At this track right now, I just noticed this. The flag is flying at half-staff. Now, that was ordered by the president, so this is a public park. I guess they just follow orders. Do I like that? Do I think it's appropriate? No. That's how this country works. The president orders the flags at half-staff for someone he thinks it should be flown for half-staff, or whatever the fuck you say. That's what they do. Some employee comes out here and lowers it. That's what happens. That is what we should celebrate. The fact that someone who I think is a hateful piece of garbage, I am looking at a flag flown at half-staff for that person. And they can have that, and I can have this. Most people see Charlie Kirk as a figure to be ignored before and after. If we want to continue to have the right to do and say as we wish, we need to stop devolving into trying to keep others from doing and saying as they wish. Hey, it's Josh. I'm back from patting myself on the back. The extra segment at the end there was a surprise for you, just like it was a surprise for me to see the flag flying at half-staff. Since I started writing this morning, the perpetrator of the lethal political crime earlier this week has turned himself in, and as it turns out, he is to the right of the leader of the Trump administration and was radicalized on the internet. I only mention these details because, as we know, the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration immediately blamed the left for this crime. Please remember that if you do not support these people and their ideologies, you are on the correct side of history. Sorry to be so serious here at the end of the show, but it is important for us all to remember and to know. Thanks again for listening. Please leave a 5-star rating for the Josh Bloom podcast in your podcast app and leave a comment saying that you like the show. Don't forget to follow, and do I need to say it again? Tell a friend about the show. With all of the bad vibes out there in the world right now, what could be better than to bring the infinite sunshine of me, Josh Bloom, into the lives of your friends? Can you imagine what they will say to you after they listen for the first time? I would imagine something to the effect of, "Wow, friend, it is because of you that I know Josh Bloom has a podcast. I will never forget it and would like to thank you right now with this envelope of cash." Let me know how this works out, and please use $3 from your friend's cash envelope to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Josh Bloom. Lastly, visit me everywhere for everything by going to superjews.com. That's superjews.com for links to all of my social media, and visit superjews.substack.com to subscribe to my Substack, which contains all of my long-form writing. Subscriptions are free, or for a small monthly donation, you can support my work. It helps a lot. Thanks again for listening. I will see you next week.